To physically stand up to John Abraham in a frame is a challenge, is a task, because he's set up his career on the fact that he is an action hero. He has that intensity. The girls are actually the center around which the two men revolve in the story. So I know it sounds a bit odd to say it like that, but when you see the film, it will make a lot of sense. The reaction sometimes is not to react and not to let them know that you're affected by it.
Words of wisdom from Arjun Kapoor, gentlemen.
It doesn't sound like I'm promoting 1 million returns suddenly.
This is looking like a Sadhguru session.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, welcome to ETimes. I'm Rachit Gupta, and joining us for a conversation today is Arjun Kapoor. We're going to be talking about his latest film, 1 Million Returns. So let's just jump into it. Hi Arjun, how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm very good. Excited to be talking about a film that's coming out in theatres.
Right. Arjun, this film is 1 Million Returns.
Yes.
So let me just ask you, who is your favorite villain of all time from films and why?
Well, that's a tough one. I think emotionally I would have to say Mogambo.
Okay.
Because in such an emotional film, to have a villain that perhaps could have been caricaturish, bent on global domination in the 80s, to have a villain like that would hinge on being caricaturish and funny and not age well. But today also what Amrish sir has done stands the test of time, and Mogambo is strangely entertaining and scary at the same time. And the world that Shekhar Kapoor and my father as a producer, they managed to create, I think, the bias is there from family, but I think Mogambo speaks for itself. The name speaks of eternal villainy. So Mogambo.
Right. You must have seen the performance so much more closely than ever.
Well, I was a very young kid, but I remember, I never went on set, but I do remember watching that film repeatedly growing up, because उस time पे VHS घर पे होता था और मैं खाना खाते खाते 2-3 पिक्चरें अनिल चाचू की देखा करता था. मैं उनका बहुत बड़ा फैन था. मिस्टर इंडिया का मैंने आज तक बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट नहीं देखा है. मैं देख ही नहीं पाता हूँ कि वो, like I remember the film by heart, but obviously Mogambo, that's why left such an impression, because even I as a child was scared of him. So yeah, I didn't see Amrish sir's performance, but I can only imagine. I think he was one of the finest actors of our generation, of that generation. I think we sorely miss a presence like his.
Arjun, you know, you've played Grey Shades before.
Yeah, of course, my first film.
Exactly. उसमें भी था.
Yeah. But there was redemption in that by the end. Yeah.
True. Is this character slightly darker than anything you've done before?
Well, this character is intentionally the way he is. It is not unintentional. I think my first film had a certain amount of naivety from the character's point of view. He doesn't realize how wrong he's doing. For him, it's a game. It's one-upmanship. It's revenge. Over here, it's not so driven by somebody doing something to him. He just is. He is somebody who believes in the fact that he's okay if people don't like him. He doesn't care. He wants to be the villain of everybody's story. He is bad and he's okay with it. And it comes from a very deep-rooted place in the film, which when you see it, you'll realize. उसे मरना चलेगा, हारना नहीं. अब जब एक इंसान ऐसे जीता है, तो आप सोच सकते हो वो किस हद तक जा सकता है to prove that point, that he wants to win. So when a person lives and dies by the fact that he has to be one up, what extents he can go to. So his modus operandi of life is very different than, say, a Parma or for in Aurangzeb, where I had just a spoiled prodigal son who was not so dark. It's just he was badly behaved and there was an arrogance of money. Here there is a certain thought process that is evil, and he wants to be more evil. It's not that he wants to change. Right. And he's not looking for redemption. Now what happens in the course of the film, because he's this kind of character, is what is exciting. But there is a vulnerability, because even the darkest people have light at the end of a tunnel. So so it's interesting how that pans out over the course of the film.
I mean, you know, I've only seen the trailer of the film, but those scenes of you and John together, they're quite intense, man. And you guys are, you know, it's not like you guys occupy the frame. You guys are hunks, so to speak. Well, so how was that?
Well, I'll take that as a compliment that I'm being called a hunk now, so that's a good thing. It's been a while since I've been praised for my physicality. But I think it would be unfair to say that we occupy the screen space when we're together in a great way, but I think it's a true ensemble, and the trailer gives you that insight also. Yeah. What we are doing is also because there are those two other very important characters of Tara and Disha around. So the thrust of the emotion comes from all four. But yeah, to physically stand up to John Abraham in a frame is a challenge, is a task, because he's set up his career on the fact that he is an action hero. He has that intensity. And I, to some degree, started out as that, but I'd left that space for a while and I was doing a lot of different varied stuff. So it was like a return for me to get back into that space. So Arjun returns in Equivalent, returns to back to where he started. I think I took it up as a challenge. If I can stand up in front of John Abraham and convince you that there are two equals who are about to collide, not age-wise or stardom-wise, just character-wise, I think then my character or my performance in the film will get a thrust. So I think in that 2.5 minute, if you're feeling that, that means it's in the right direction. I think it's working well.
But you know, John's always had this ideal physique.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've had your fair share of ups and downs with your own physique.
I've not been able to hold on to the ideal physique, let's put it this way.
I mean, you started off on a great note.
Yeah.
So, did you guys exchange any notes? Was that part of the off-screen?
Not necessarily as direct as having a chat sitting down, but he's always very welcoming and encouraging and motivating for a person who's built his entire life on being fit. It's inevitable that the conversations will go around in that area. But he was very encouraging. He said, you know, you're looking so good. He called me after seeing one of the songs before we shot together. What me and Tara had shot, and he said, you're looking good and just keep going, and you know, you have to get better and better, and he was very motivating. So it's not so much about how I should work out or what I should eat, but it was more about you're on the right path and keep heading that way. And I think that's more important sometimes than being specific. It's just about making sure that you appreciate the fact that somebody's on their way. I think it's not even about encouragement, it's just about appreciating that they recognize what you're trying to achieve. And that's very, very important when you're in the position that I was in at that point in time, that there is recognition for the effort you're putting.
But coming from him, it must feel extra special, right?
Of course, I think it feels special when anybody says it. The fact that you've said it now or any other person saying it in an interview, it's not, the quest was never so much about removing a t-shirt and being compared with John Abraham, because that's not going to be something I can achieve that easily. That would perhaps need maybe a couple of more years of me having to really work towards it. And that wasn't the agenda on the film. The agenda on the film was being able to go man versus man. And that does not always need you to be naked, half naked. It's more about the intensity that you bring with the posture, the physicality and the attitude. And that comes from you loving your physicality as a person first. So you build on it for your character. It feels amazing to be recognized for what I've done by John, by the media, by the audience, by people who've not appreciated me in the past, or people who had an expectation and had not fulfilled it. So for me, it's really interesting to know that hard work pays sooner rather than later. You just have to keep your head down and keep at it.
Another thing, Arjun, while I was watching the film, those set pieces, those action set pieces, especially in the train and on the streets, they look really intense and international.
Thank you. That's credit to Mohit then.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to ask this to Mohit as well. Probably when I meet him, I will. But when you sort of saw that playing out, did that sort of, you know,
the finesse, yeah, the finesse, the polish that you can see in the trailer is come from a lot of prep that the guys behind the scenes put in, and to get the right team. So when you see the metro fight in the trailer, or when you see the bike chase, or when you see the hand-to-hand combat between John and me. There are three, and my introduction is an action sequence as well. When you see that, there is a lot of hard work and effort put in terms of creating that world and that milieu. So even the styling and the shooting style, you know, the fact that me and John both are in darker outfits in the train to make it look intense. Small choices like that, you know, the way they've used neon in the film, the way they've used Mumbai's streets in the fights, in the chases, it all adds. So if it feels international, it's because there's a lot of thought that's gone behind it. And credit more to the people that have worked on that. We've just executed it, and there is a great stunt team involved in making sure that it was done very, very well. Yeah.
Okay, Arjun, while I was watching the trailer, you know, even the girls, they have a real surprise up their sleeve.
Yes, yes.
So how much is that going to be, you know, an exciting proposition for the audience?
I think the trailer has made sure that you understand that this is not just the quintessential दो मर्द लड़ रहे हैं और बचा रहे हैं लड़कियों को. You know, there is far more than meets the eye. And Mohit is also known for his female characters, protagonists, or in this case maybe antagonists, if you want to call them that, having an arc and having an ability to influence the story very, very drastically. So at no point can you undermine the importance of those two characters. I think they are the emotional thrust of the film. The boys are more reactive to the emotional quotient that the two female characters provide. Both characters react to having these women around, and that is fundamentally what is so exciting. It's not that they are proactive on their own and the girls are trying to just be around in the periphery. The girls are actually the center, around which the two men revolve in the story. So I know it sounds a bit odd to say it like that, but when you see the film, it will make a lot of sense to you.
Arjun, do you believe you guys have shown a little too much in the trailer?
I in fact feel we've done exactly what people didn't expect us to do. Is we've made you wonder and we've created intrigue and asked questions. So we've shown you a bit of everything, but we've not shown you anything. In a long time, perhaps in the last couple of years, if you see, a lot of Hindi film trailers have suffered on account of showing the entire story.
Exactly.
If I ask you what is the story of Ek Villain Returns, you will not know that after seeing this trailer, right?
I mean, I can only guess.
Which is, you would want to know if your assumption is right or if your thought process is aligning with what the film is. So that is half the battle won, that we've got your curiosity through the trailer. We have shown quite a lot, but the context of it only will come when you see the film. So I think it's one of the better cut trailers in recent times, where the fact, like I said, you expect the men to go after each other in the last shot and suddenly you see two women having a nice moment with each other and you realize, okay, where did that come from? Having said that, it could have gone badly wrong because if you don't give any clarity, sometimes it can put people off. But that is where the franchise value and the director's value comes in. You have some implicit faith from the audience also that you know that Mohit Suri is not trying to con you or he's not serving you bullshit. You know that there is something more than meets the eye, like I said earlier. And the trailer has made you ask the right questions. Do you want to know, are they all? Is it one? Who is it? How did this work? And if those are the questions versus saying, "Arey, what the hell happened?" You know, that's the subtle difference between a trailer going right and wrong.
Yeah.
If you're like, "Arey yaar, kya ho raha hai? Kuch samajh bhi nahi aa raha." It's like, okay, I'm not fully getting it, but I get a sense that this could be that. So you know, there's plausibility in the film. I think that would catch attention, and that's what's happened with the trailer. Like I said, it could have backfired, but I think it's gone the right way.
So, the first film, the real surprise factor was, of course, Ritesh's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, it just caught you by
Yeah, I mean, like a common man having a dark side is something that exists, and just to show it in the most commercial space was very, very exciting at that point.
So, can we expect such surprises with this?
So that was 8 years back. Society was different. I think the common man was a different common man. I think today's generation, the younger generation especially, is very different in this digital world. We are doing an interview right now for that audience, you know. So you have to understand the common man then was different, the common man now is different. Love stories were different. 8 years is a long time if you keep in mind the 3 years have passed by while we were sitting at home. The world has changed. So in that sense, I think there will be surprises where you'll find relatability to about how love is perceived today, how people react, and how people are okay being grey today more perhaps. 8 years back, the moral compass was very different than it is today. And that's where I think where mainstream and real life kind of collide nicely. If you can actually gather some synergy between the reality of the younger audience versus the reality of your characters who are young. So I think that synergy is there, and that is why I feel it'll be a surprise. Whatever happens in the film will be a surprise because it'll be relevant to today's youth.
One final question, Arjun. The basic sort of theme that I could take away from the trailer was that there is deception over here.
Yes.
So, in your real life, if somebody were to deceive you, how would you react? What would you do?
I mean, of course, it's tough to take, and it's a hard, bitter pill to swallow when you trust only somebody who you trust can deceive you, right? If a person does not have that emotional anchor with you and he or she deceives you, you might not feel that bad also. It's like, say tomorrow shopkeepers deceived you and charged you a little extra, you can go back and fight about it, or you can just be disappointed about that person and move on in life. That deception you can live with. But when there is somebody you care about, that deception will hit you hard, and it'll take you time to dissect it and absorb it and live through it. I'm somebody who's trying to be better than that, and also you have to learn if that person has done what he or she has, then he definitely is not worth having in your life any which way. So you learn to cut the cord. You learn to forgive because it's better for you to let go and move on and focus your energy on more positive things. It's easier than done. I'm sure a lot of people are saying he's sounding like a saint right now, but that's the aspiration. You don't always get there.
True.
So forgiving but not forgetting is right, because you should remember when you've been hurt by people, when you've been deceived, and when you've trusted people. Like I said, you care about somebody, so you trust them, and your trust is broken. That is what deception is. Or you think a person is a certain way or doing certain things in your benefit versus you realize it wasn't. Betrayal is something that is very, very real in today's day and age. It's something that you cannot discount. Are people as vulnerable as they were maybe 10, 15 years back? I think they're more vulnerable, because I think we are more emotionally vulnerable today, because we are all looking for gaining each other's trust and companionship. So there are more betrayals today maybe than they've been because for whatever reason you can see society as a place is very deceptive now. Everybody has their own selfish agendas.
Social media is also.
Exactly. So coming, and that's what I'm saying is relating it to deception today is you have to also realize people don't consider it such a bad thing if they've done something selfishly for their own good and they could have upset or hurt somebody because we are a far more selfish community now in this world. As sad as that sounds, it is true.
It's true.
You also have to get used to it. You will be deceived every now and again.
That's part of growing up.
The smartest people get deceived when they least expect it. The most street smart people get out hustled from time to time. The least emotional people end up getting emotional and getting screwed over. It happens a lot. You just have to accept that it's part of life. The way you deal with it can be your own prerogative, but you can't be in denial कि ऐसा मेरे साथ तो हो ही नहीं सकता, मैं बहुत smart हूँ या मेरे साथ क्यों होगा, मेरे साथ तो सब अच्छे लोग हैं. When you least expect it, you will be deceived by people you least expect it out of.
So is moving on the key? Or you should also react?
Depends how it is, right? It's so subjective. I mean, in a film, you have to react for the story to go forward. In life, you don't always have to react. And your reaction doesn't always have to be proving a point to the other person. The reaction sometimes is not to react and not to let them know that you're affected by it. That in itself is a very powerful tool. Very tough to achieve, but very, very powerful.
Words of wisdom from Arjun Kapoor, gentlemen.
It doesn't sound like I'm promoting 8 million returns suddenly.
This is looking like a Sadhguru session.
Yeah.
No man, but this is good, yeah. It's a good conversation, and hopefully, a lot of these emotions will carry forward into the film.
I hope so, yeah. I hope
Associate
so,
with
yeah.
it. So best of luck for that.
Thank you so
Arjun, and
much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.